Bob Bradley. He never coached internationally.
Nope. And we had Klinsman.
Then we had Klinsman, who had coached internationally, but he was a completely different person.
We talked about this pre-podcast. There was a great article on SI about Klinsman. They did a little interview with him about does he have any regrets about coaching the United States team and them not making the World Cup, this year and all that type of stuff. And he said he wouldn't do it any differently. He'd do it all the same. He believes that when he was fired, they were kind of going through a lull, but they were going to come back and make the World Cup. And he believes, of course, that they fired him way too early because he was just getting kind of things going.
Right.
And they were going to do it, but every team goes through a lull. He did some interesting points about MLS and how he believes that the United States will never be a big player on the international scene because of the way the MLS is set up. Because their schedule is not the same as what is in Europe. They don't play as long. They don't have the league set up. What do you call it? Going up and down the
relegation.
Relegation. Yeah, they don't have relegation in MLS, so you can't. His statement was, guys, they get to the MLS and like, well, I don't have to play that hard because we're not going to get relegated. My team's not getting relegated, so there's no reason for me to play any harder than there is. I mean, he's got a valid point, Because if you look at the relegation, if there was relegation in MLS, I mean, think about it. You'd have teams dropping down every year and coming up every year. I mean, because it's so fluid.
Yeah, I think, I like promotion relegation. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I buy into the argument that it makes the league better.
But you play harder.
Maybe. I'm trying to be the devil's advocate.
But you look at it. Okay, you come into let's say you come into the last. Okay, let's use Minnesota United as an example. Okay,
sure.
You come into the last game of the season. You have to win that game in order to stay in MLS,
right?
Or drop down to the NASL or whatever league they have below it. Wouldn't your guys be playing their flipping hearts out to stay in MLS?
Yeah, I mean, that argument certainly makes sense. But in the middle of the season, does that argument make sense? For me, I think the benefit to the playoff structure and no relegation is that you have something to fight for all season long.
Yeah.
Where the relegation battle, a lot of times that fight doesn't start until game 33 of the season.
Sure.
Or maybe even like 38 of the very last game. Where the playoffs, you have that playoff line. Mm-hmm. And so all season, you're working toward that playoff line. Yeah. Now, obviously, maybe there's an answer inside this where it's a combination of the two.
Sure.
I think Mexico, has playoffs for relegation, I believe.
But we're missing a big key point in getting relegation in the United States is we don't have enough big teams to do that.
Well, that's also true.
You can't relegate an MLS team down to like an NASL and have the Tampa Bay Rowdies come up from wherever and play in their stadium in MLS. You can't do that.
Right. And I think that's my position on relegation is I would be more than happy to see it in the United States, but I don't think it's going to happen in the next 20 years.
No.
I think, as the USL, which I presumably believe will be the next tier.
Yes.
As USL grows, their attendances are way up. I read an article about how they broke attendance records already. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, their attendances are up. Their stadiums are getting better. So there's definitely that foundation growing.
But each of those teams would have to have at least a 15,000 person stadium. At least. So you'd have to have them all have at least 15,000 person stadium. They'd all have to be MLS ready to be relegated, or to be promoted. And then you also have the problem of owners in the MLS who aren't used to being dropped down a league and having to deal with that.
Yeah, and I think that'll be the biggest obstacle because the United States doesn't have that concept. So whether it's an owner perspective or it's a casual fan perspective, because I think most strong fans of MLS teams follow leagues outside of the United States.
Yeah.
So they understand the concept. But those casual fans are the ones that are going to be the biggest issue. And if you look at, for instance, Allianz Arena, you have 14,500 season ticket holders. The stadium holds 19,400. You have 3,900 seats that have to sell outside of season tickets.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happens with those 3,900 seats? Well, at least half of them, and I would bet 75% of them, are those casual fans that, they like being outside. They like going to a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's an inexpensive opportunity to just, hang out and have a beer or whatever. That group of people, you have to get them to understand the concept that, sure, they got relegated, but it's still professional sports.
That's right.
There's still the same team.
Yeah.
Still the same players. Basically the same quality.
Mm-hmm.
And they might go back up next year.
Maybe, yeah.
But you have to get them to understand that, because when you say that they go down a level or down a league, they immediately think, well, baseball is minor leagues.
Yeah.
AAA players aren't the same as Major League Baseball.
No.
Or, the NFL doesn't even have a minor league.
No.
And if they're not a hockey fan, they don't understand lower leagues. If they're not an NBA fan, well, I guess
the G League.
They do have G League, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, but that's the thing. How many casual sports fans understand the concepts of the lower leagues, outside the fact that these people aren't professionals?
So then, do you think MLS would be better off doing instead of doing a relegation promotion type deal? Do you think it'd be better off just doing like minor leagues, like saying, okay, well, United have an affiliate, and they are in the, USL or whatever it is, and that's their minor league affiliate, and you can bring guys up and down, kind of like baseball, kind of like basketball, kind of like hockey. Do it that way.
Yeah, if I had an idea, and that would be part of it, my plan would be you bring in another, we're at 23 teams. Next year we'll be at 24.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're bringing in Miami at 25 and 2 more teams.
So we'll be at 27.
So we'll be at, well, so it'll be 28 because we're not going to do it odd number.
Yeah.
So I'll bring somebody else, it'll be at 28. My theory would be you go up to 30.
Okay.
And you split the league.
Okay.
And you do MLS 1 and MLS
That's
2.
All right.
So all the owners have paid their $100 million, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have relegation within your league.
Okay.
And if you have affiliates, then you have affiliates in USL.
Okay.
And that's how the affiliates are now.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it. Because you cut down on that ownership dislike of inserting all this money and losing out.
But then you're going to have 15 teams in each league.
Which I think is fine. I mean, it would obviously be better to maybe get up to 32.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously most leagues are generally 18.
But are there 32
markets
in the United States that are going to take soccer? Or the United States and Canada?
Well, Canada now has the Canadian Premier League.
Yeah, but we can't go into Mexico.
Right.
So we have United States and Canada.
Ideally, we should just take over Mexico.
Well, hold on. I mean, you just
pull Liga MX into a major
No. We're not doing that. They're building the wall, by the way.
Yeah.
I think he's talking from a soccer perspective.
Yes. I'm not talking political or governmental.
But I'm telling you, they're building a wall. Yes. That would never happen with Trump.
That would be
could you imagine the backlash that would happen if we took over the Mexican Soccer League and the guys would cross the border and Trump would be like, are they documented?
They'd never be able to get
They'd never be able to get by.
Visas.
Yeah. They'd like sneak across on a bus.
Yeah. Are there 32 markets in the U.S.? I think there are. I mean, I don't know that I was ever fully convinced that Minnesota was a good market. And it appears that it is.
I've been in Minnesota my whole life. I've always known Minnesota was a great soccer market. And the reason why is because when I was a kid, there was the Kicks, there was the Strikers.
Right.
They've had soccer around here for a long time. The reason those things didn't work is because the ownership and the leagues they were in were totally insolvent. I mean, they were terrible leagues.
Right.
But when I was a kid, everybody who didn't play baseball played soccer.
Sure.
And I played soccer for 7 years, and there was a lot of youth soccer going on back
there
then.
is. It's the largest.
And then when we got
Yeah.
what was it before United was
Well, it was the Stars and
the
Thunder.
Stars, Thunder. That was still huge up in Blaine. That was still a big thing. So, and we have a ton of immigrants here from Africa, from Latin America. So it was always going to be a big thing to get here. And I think it shows that we sold all the season tickets out for the new field.
Right.
That we're going to have a great fan base.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're talking 32 markets, you got to bring Milwaukee into conversation. I don't think Milwaukee's a soccer city.
Milwaukee, no.
Charlotte has a team, but their attendance isn't very high.
But I heard Columbus is going to lose their team.
Columbus is probably going to lose their team.
Yeah.
And they've only had a handful of seasons in their existence where they've actually been close to sell out for average attendance. So they've never really been a good market.
So let's just brainstorm some areas you think should have soccer. I mean, so Milwaukee potentially, but probably not.
Probably.
Cleveland
could do it.
could do
Detroit
it.
could do it.
Detroit could do it.
I think Chicago could have second.
Yeah.
Because if it's downtown,
yeah,
it would work.
Or the north side.
Or the north side.
Yeah.
Which there's a USL club that's planning on going in on the north side.
Let's put a soccer team in Minneapolis. Let's do St. Paul, Minneapolis. Let's do a little rivalry action.
It'd be interesting.
That would split the base so bad, though.
Yeah.
I mean, one team's enough. We can't split the base.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Duluth could get one.
Tampa could do it.
Tampa could. Miami, of course, is going to.
Sacramento you wouldn't think could, but they do fantastic.
How about there's big elephant in the room here, Las Vegas, and
The weather. The weather can be
But you'd have to do You have to do indoors.
I suppose you could.
You'd have to do a retractable roof on that one.
Yeah, maybe. Phoenix is the same way.
Phoenix, I can just say.
Vegas could work.
Let's talk about Vegas a little bit.
Vegas, that really could work.
Vegas has a USL team.
We
first
talked
year.
about betting, and now the big news came out. The Supreme Court actually decided to, tear down the law that says you can't bet in the United States. So, putting a team in Vegas is not going to be, as bad as everybody thinks it's going to be.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think so. First off, congratulations to the Supreme Court for understanding what federalism is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my political point for
here
the
you go.
podcast. I don't think people have always been concerned, even with the NFL talk.
Yeah.
It was, betting.
Well, they were concerned about the NHL too, the Golden Knights, concerned about the betting problems with that. And so, if we're going to get rid of that now, if we're going to say any state can do legalized sports betting,
Right.
then why can't? So MLB, NBA, MLS can all put teams in Vegas.
Yeah,
that's a huge market.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I mentioned USL already has a Vegas team. Well, this year was the first year. I haven't checked to see what their attendance is or anything like that. I think the climate's the big one.
Yeah.
Phoenix does pretty well. All their games, I think, are always evening, which they have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, right.
Or retractable roof.
Right.
New Orleans? New Orleans good team?
Maybe.
I mean,
I think you have to start looking at income demographics.
Yeah. So,
especially in the South.
Well, so you're going to push. Here's the thing with income demographics. You're going to, of course, push East Coast first because that's where everybody thinks of. Then you're going to go West Coast because that's what everybody thinks of next, and then you're going to go middle of the country.
Right.
So you might. I mean, we might have 30 teams. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, we just counted out 25. So you just need another 7.
5 or 7.
Yeah. I think St. Louis could do it.
Yeah, I don't know. St. Louis is a big baseball town, man. Huge baseball town.
They haven't. They've been in the running. They were in the running for a team with Minnesota.
Yeah.
And they got beat up. It's really hard to tell when you look at a market like Atlanta. No one thought Atlanta was going to be a market like they are.
Yeah.
Everyone assumed that they'd be a good market, but the way that they are, the way that they're, 40 plus thousand a game.